Zara, you're such a star. Let's hear the question this week.
Good morning, everybody. I am with 18 Degrees North, Zara Burton, and I have 5 questions. The first one is regarding Prime Minister Andrew Holness. Last week, he said in a cabinet meeting that he was about to go to, there would be discussion of allocation of expenditures, and that Minister Tufton had put in quite a hefty bid, and you said under your breath as well that you also had your portion. I wanted to know if we could get a breakdown by ministry at this stage of the game, what the allocation of expenditures was at last week's meeting, and so what each ministry is working with. 2, as journalists and members of the public, it is particularly difficult sometimes to get information on expenditures and revenues coming in a timely manner. It's something we've complained about over and over again. The ATI Act has not yet been amended, even though we've been asking for years about it. I wanted to, under this situation with Melissa, there are some sections of that act, specifically 2 things that jump out at me. The government agencies have a way of often saying that this is commercially sensitive information that they can't give out. 2, they often say, especially during COVID, for instance, when you ask for contracts from donors with COVID vaccines, that information is not available, or a legal opinion is being sought as to whether that information can be made available because there are some sensitivities in the Act and exemptions in the Act related to foreign relations, if it would compromise anything related to confidential information from international partners. We, I think, as members of the public, would want those items relaxed in the Act, the ATI Act, so that we can, in fact, get the information without those exemptions being considered for the purpose of this recovery and for accountability.
All right. I'll come to ATI separately when you're finished, yes.
Okay.
All right, so that's number 2.
Number 3, in terms of the IC Act, QCA database, that also has not been made public for some time now, some years. They also went to the Oversight Committee in Parliament.
All right, go ahead, finish your question. Finish your question.
Oversight Committee in Parliament to speak about the idea that there's a particular section of the IC Act which bars them from giving the QCA database on a quarterly basis as they used to do. Again, just wondering if anything can be done to relax that, any kind of emergency legislation that can come to the fore so that that can be relaxed, so that the QCA database can continue to be published, especially during the Hurricane Melissa period. That's 3. The 4th thing, you mentioned the temporary housing, and I wanted to know what kind of quotations and for what kind of housing are you considering at this stage? I realized that you said there are quotations being sought, and I also wanted to know, as a part B to that question, I know you mentioned the churches for the National Prayer Day. I wanted to know if the churches have also been approached about opening up maybe some of the dormitories they have for missionaries to house some of the people that are in fact without shelter. 5, the United States yesterday gave an additional US $10 million worth of aid. 22 million in total is the amount now. I just wanted to understand, because I was reading about Hurricane Maria in Puerto Rico, and one of the complaints in that jurisdiction, I realize it's a totally different situation in that Puerto Rico is tied to the US, but one of the complaints in that situation was that the United States mainland contractors got most of the contracts. Just asking if in the US case, if there was any kind of stipulation that any US contractors would have to be hired in order to get this aid, anything like that that you could communicate with us, as well as any other international donor partner that may have made those kinds of indications.
All right, thank you for your questions. That was quite extensive. Some I can answer, some I cannot at this point. All right, in terms of allocation of expenditure, what we would have done was each entity would have gone to cabinet and given their initial assessment of damage. And so agriculture would do it, education would. But none of us have finalized any estimates of damage. And so what we would have done was go and give our indicative amounts. So that was what would have been discussed. So there's been no full allocations as yet. to us. Because what the Ministry of Finance has to do, you can think about it. Every single one of us is going with this big bill. Every ministry is. And every ministry has been affected. And so what has to happen is the Ministry of Finance has to figure out how much money it actually has, and then look at the requests that are coming in, and then make decisions. It will say, I see you have asked for 2 million, but based on what we have and the need to share it, we can only give you 1. Can you work within this one? So it's a process that happens, and we're in the very early parts of that. My official numbers have not gone in because we've not finished our full assessment of our schools. And so when that happens, it will go in. But, you know, we would have given an indicative amount. So there are no full allocations have been made yet. In terms of information on expenditure in a timely manner, you were talking about the Access to Information Act. That is something that I think we have committed to reviewing and doing a joint select committee where everybody in the media can come and make their submissions, because that piece of legislation needs to be looked at in its totality. And so that's a commitment that has already been made. And as we move past this emergency phase, I know we'll start looking at that. Can't speak to the IC Act, but I have purview over the Access to Information one, and so I speak on that one. In terms of temporary housing, we're looking at all options that are available to us. Obviously, you do your initial, you look at your initial stuff, who is out there, who has things. There are people who will call you all the time saying, look at this solution, look at that solution. We've just really been looking at it, but we're going to have some kind of procurement mechanism, because we can't just choose one, oh, we like you. That's not how things work with this administration. You have to go through a procurement process that's very open. Obviously, it's emergency rules we're using, but just because it's emergency rules doesn't mean it's a free-for-all. Emergency rules still indicate we need value for money. And so that's the way we're looking at it. And as we get more refined, we'll give you more information. Churches using their spaces as dormitories. We really encourage the church to do as much as they can. And there is a committee led by Minister Grange on that, and they're looking at how they can support more broadly. In terms of the aid from the U.S., we're very, very happy to get that visit yesterday from the Undersecretary and the commitment of $10 million more in aid. I know of no stipulation that says we have to use U.S. contractors as a part of that. This is aid that's being provided to us, and we've been very grateful for the aid, and I haven't seen it in any other jurisdiction either. All right.
Just to make a point, please, sorry to interrupt you, Minister. The idea that the ATI Act will be reviewed, I was trying to say with the IC Act and the ATI Act, if in the same way that we've had to essentially activate emergency rules around procurement, I was wondering if there could be some emergency legislation regarding the ATI Act and the IC Act that is presented to the Parliament for discussion,
right,
to relax some of the rules around it. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, well, we're really focused on relief right now, and obviously as things emerge and as questions are asked, we do explore them and see if it is a possibility. But right now, the key thing for us really is getting food to people and getting shelter to people, and legislative changes are important, but that's not been the focus right now for us.
Good morning, everyone. Hello. Katie Powell, NCUFM News. I have two questions.
Did you hear that? NCUFM News.
Yes.
It's always nice to have the non-traditional ones here with us.
Yes, so this is regarding education.
Sure.
Are there any considerations for extending the school year, and what would that look like? And also, could you say if there are any specific international aid coming in specifically for rebuilding schools and so forth?
All right. Thank you for that question. In terms of extending the school year, as you know, it is a requirement that we have a particular number of teaching days, right, in each term. And so that's obviously been affected by the hurricane. We don't make those decisions without consulting. So we do have to do our consultations across the system. Some of the children do need a mental break. So they do need their holidays, and our teachers need the holidays too. So we're going to do it in a collaborative manner. What I'm most concerned about are our children who have exams. So those who are doing PEP, those who have CSEC and CAPE. And so we're going to have to work through how we can give additional support, even in the holidays, for those children. So that's a very important consideration for us. And your last question?
International aid specifically.
Right, specifically education. There are some entities that are looking at education now. Remember, most of them would have been about the immediate need. So they're looking at the relief effort, getting food to people, getting quick pieces of shelter, things that can be used for shelter. So that's been the focus. Right now we're moving into the recovery phase, which is where we get back going, you get your utilities stood up and you can go back to school. And so we're now starting to ask donors for things. And as we do our assessment, it becomes clear what we need. UNICEF has committed some things. They've said, for example, they could get us really heavy duty tents if you need to have school in those facilities. So we have that. And as we get the assessments on the schools, we're going to go to the international community and ask for direct support for our schools so that they can be up and running more quickly.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam NCU. All right.
I
so
have one more question.
All right. This is the last one because we do have to
last one
close.
from me, yes.
Last one for the day. Yes.
Okay. This one is for Minister Mackenzie.
All right.
It's just to get an update on the national cleanup campaign, when it will be launched, what it will look like.
All right. Minister.
The final details of the national cleanup is being worked on. There are a number of agencies that will participate. Cabinet gave its approval yesterday, so by next week I'll be rolling out the full details of the cleanup exercise across the country.
All right. Thank you very much, Minister. I think we are at the end of today's press briefing. As I said, we are planning another one, and we will put out additional updates as they become available on the hurricane. And we're expecting to do another one of these on Thursday morning. We do have cabinet that day, so we may have to shift it Friday, but we will send out the advisory early enough so that you know when the next one will be. And if you don't hear from me, there's always Senator Morgan, who is my surrogate on radio and all over and giving the information also. So we will be out there getting information to you, and I know Minister Vaz does quite a bit of that too. And so as we end again, we end always with a sense of hope. And today we got a lot of hope, especially when you heard from JPS today. And we're so grateful to you. And as I've been going around, you know, you had issues with service